There is a voice inside you that never stops speaking, even when the world falls silent. It whispers in the dark, it questions your every step, it replays your past, and rehearses your future over and over again. And the strangest part is, you believe it. But what if I told you that voice is not your master? It is your illusion. Overthinking is not simply thinking too much. It is the mind attempting to control what was never meant to be controlled. It is the restless effort to solve life as if it were a puzzle with a final answer, as if peace lies at the end of one more thought, one more conclusion, one more certainty. But life does not unfold that way. Life is not something to be solved. It is something to be lived. You see, the mind is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. And when it becomes the master, it begins to weave stories. Stories about what might happen, what could go wrong, what others might think, what you should have done differently. And slowly, without you even noticing, you begin to live inside those stories instead of reality itself. Have you ever noticed how overthinking steals the present moment from you? You could be sitting in a peaceful room, the air calm, the world quiet, yet inside your mind there is chaos. You replay a conversation from yesterday. You imagine a problem that hasn't happened yet. You question a decision you already made. And in doing so, you leave the only place where life actually exists, the present. There was once a man who carried a heavy burden in his heart. Every night he would lie awake thinking about the mistakes he made, fearing the future, doubting himself endlessly. One day he went to a wise teacher and said, "My mind is my enemy. It never lets me rest." And the teacher simply smiled and asked, "If your mind is your enemy, then who is the one noticing it?" And in that moment, something shifted. Because the truth is, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, the silent witness, the still presence that sees the storm but is not the storm. Overthinking happens when we forget this, when we believe every thought that arises, when we cling to every fear as if it were truth, when we try to predict life instead of trusting it. It is, in essence, a lack of surrender. And this is where faith enters, not as a blind belief, but as a deep knowing, a quiet trust that life is guided by something far greater than the restless calculations of the mind. When you truly trust in God, when you believe that there is a divine order unfolding, you no longer feel the need to control every outcome. There is a verse that echoes this truth so beautifully: "Be still and know that I am God." Be still not just in your body, but in your mind. Because in stillness, you begin to see clearly. You begin to realize that most of your worries are not real. They are shadows created by thought. Overthinking is like standing in front of a mirror. But instead of seeing your reflection, you begin to imagine distortions. You question the image. You analyze it. You doubt it, until you no longer recognize what is real. And yet, the mirror has not changed. Only your perception has. So how do we begin to loosen the grip of overthinking? Not by fighting it, because the more you fight the mind, the stronger it becomes. Instead, you observe it. You watch your thoughts as you would watch clouds passing through the sky. You do not chase them. You do not resist them. You simply let them be. At first, this may feel difficult. Because the mind is used to being in control, it will try to pull you back into its endless loops. But with patience, with gentle awareness, you begin to create space, and in that space, something beautiful emerges. Something beautiful emerges. Peace, Not the kind of peace that comes from solving all your problems, but the kind that exists even when problems are present. A peace that is rooted in trust, in surrender, in faith. There is a quiet power in letting go. Not giving up, but letting go of the need to figure everything out. Letting go of the illusion that you must have all the answers before you can feel at ease. Because the truth is, life reveals itself step by step, moment by moment, not all at once. Think about a time when something you feared never actually happened, or when something unexpected turned out better than you imagined. Life has a way of surprising us, of unfolding in ways the mind could never predict. And yet, overthinking blinds us to this mystery. It traps us in a narrow view, a limited perspective. Faith opens that perspective again. It reminds you that you are not alone in this journey, that there is a wisdom guiding you, even when you cannot see it. And sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is to stop thinking so much and start trusting more. Imagine placing your worries in the hands of God, not as a concept, but as a real living surrender. Imagine saying, I do not need to carry this alone. And in that moment, feel the weight begin to lift, because you were never meant to carry it all. Overthinking tells you that you must analyze every detail, prepare for every possibility, control every outcome. But faith whispers something entirely different. It says, rest, trust, you are held. And perhaps, right now, this is what your soul is longing for. Not more answers, not more thoughts, but more peace, more presence, more trust. So take a breath, a slow, gentle breath, and notice that in this moment, you are okay. Not in the imagined future, not in the remembered past, but right here, right now. And as you begin to return to this moment, again and again, you will find that overthinking slowly loses its power. Not because it disappears completely, but because you no longer believe it. So deeply, you begin to see it for what it is, a habit of the mind, not the truth of your being. And in that realization, there is freedom, a quiet, sacred freedom that no thought can take away. Hold on to this gently. There is no rush. Healing the mind is not about force. It is about patience, about kindness, about trust, trust in yourself and trust in the divine flow of life, even when the mind becomes loud again. And it will. Remember this, you are not the noise. You are the silence beneath it. And in that silence, God speaks. And so, as that silence begins to gently reveal itself within you, you may notice something unexpected. The thoughts have not vanished. The mind has not completely stilled. And yet, there is a small distance now, a space between you and the storm. This is where the transformation quietly begins, because overthinking is not conquered in a single moment of realization. It loosens its grip through awareness, through presence, through a subtle shift in how you relate to your own mind. You begin to notice patterns, the same fears returning in different disguises, the same doubts wearing new masks. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you stop reacting to every single one. There was a woman who used to replay every conversation she ever had. After speaking to someone, she would walk away and immediately begin dissecting her words. Did I say too much? Did I sound foolish? Did they misunderstand me? the worse it became. One day, exhausted from this endless cycle, she did something different. Instead of correcting her thoughts, she simply sat with them. She let them speak, without interruption, without resistance, and as she listened, she realized something astonishing. The thoughts were not stable, they contradicted each other. One moment they accused her, the next moment they defended her. They were not truth, they were noise. And in seeing this, she began to laugh, not out of mockery, but out of freedom, because for the first time, she saw that she did not have to obey every voice inside her head. You see, overthinking thrives on seriousness. It convinces you that every thought is urgent. Every possibility must be analyzed. But when you step back and observe, you begin to see the absurdity of it all. The mind is like a storyteller that never sleeps, constantly weaving tales, some tragic, some hopeful, but all of them imagined. And yet we treat these stories as if they were reality itself. This is where a deeper spiritual understanding begins to unfold. Because faith is not just about believing in something greater. It is about releasing the illusion that you must control everything. It is about trusting that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. There is a sacred wisdom in letting things be incomplete. Overthinking resists this. It demands closure, certainty, final answers. But life rarely offers such neat conclusions. It moves, it flows, it changes. And when you try to freeze it into a fixed understanding, you create tension. Have you ever tried to fall asleep while overthinking? The more you try to force yourself to sleep, the more awake you become. But the moment you let go, the moment you stop trying, sleep arrives on its own. Peace works in the same way. It cannot be forced. It must be allowed. And this is where surrender becomes a living practice, not just a concept. Surrender does not mean giving up on life. It means releasing your grip on the illusion of control. It means trusting that even when things feel uncertain, there is a deeper order at work. There is a verse that gently reminds us of this truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Notice that, lean not on your own understanding, because the mind, in its attempt to understand everything, often creates more confusion than clarity. This does not mean you abandon reason. It means you balance it with trust. You allow space for the unknown, for the unseen, for the divine unfolding that cannot be predicted by thought alone. Overthinking often comes from fear. The fear of making the wrong choice, the fear of being judged, the fear of losing control. And beneath all these fears, there is a deeper one, the fear of uncertainty. But what if uncertainty is not something to fear, but something to embrace? Because uncertainty is where possibility lives. It is where life breathes, where new paths emerge, where miracles quietly take shape. When you are overly certain, overly attached to one outcome, you close yourself off to the vastness of what could be. There was a man who planned every detail of his life. Every step was calculated, every risk minimized. And yet, despite all his planning, he felt empty. One day, something unexpected happened. His plans fell apart. At first, he panicked. His mind raced, trying to fix, to control, to restore order. But when he finally exhausted himself, when he could no longer think his way out, he did something radical. He stopped. And in that stopping, he noticed. Something he had never seen before. Life was still moving. Opportunities were still appearing. People were still showing up. And for the first time, he allowed himself to follow instead of force. And what he discovered was not chaos, but flow. This is the paradox of overthinking. the more you try to control life, the more disconnected you feel from it. But when you begin to trust, to allow, to surrender, you find yourself carried by something far greater than your own mind. And this does not mean you will never think again. It means your thinking becomes lighter. It becomes a tool, not a prison. You begin to ask yourself gently, is this thought serving me? Or is it draining me? And if it is draining you, you do not fight it. You simply let it pass. You simply let it pass. Like a leaf floating down the river, it comes and it goes. There is a profound peace in realizing that you do not have to engage with every thought. You can choose not by force, but by awareness. And in that awareness, your relationship with your mind begins to change. It becomes quieter, softer, less demanding. And in that quietness, something sacred begins to grow. A sense of trust, not just in God, but in life itself. You start to feel that you are being guided even in moments of confusion, that not everything needs to make sense right now. That clarity comes in its own time, often when you least expect it. So when the mind begins to spiral again, and it will, do not resist it harshly. Do not judge yourself for overthinking. Instead, meet it with compassion. Say to yourself, the mind is trying to protect me again. And in that gentle acknowledgement, you create space, because the goal is not to eliminate thoughts, but to no longer be enslaved by them. And as you continue on this path, slowly, patiently, you will notice that the weight begins to lift. The constant tension, the endless questioning, it softens. And in its place, there is a quiet faith, a faith that says, even if I do not understand everything, I am still held. I am still guided. I am still okay. Carry this with you. I am still guided. I am still okay. Carry this with you. Like a small light in the darkness. You do not need to see the entire path, just the next step. And that is enough. And so, as that small light begins to steady within you, something deeper starts to unfold. A realization that perhaps the mind was never meant to be silenced completely, but understood, gently, patiently, like a child that does not yet know how to rest. Overthinking at its core is not your enemy, it is a signal. A signal that somewhere within you there is fear, there is uncertainty, there is a longing for safety. And instead of listening to that longing with compassion, the mind tries to solve it with endless thoughts. It tries to think its way into peace. But peace does not come that way. Peace comes when you feel safe enough to stop. There was a young man who constantly worried about his future. Every decision felt heavy, every choice carried the weight of what if. He would sit for hours, going over possibilities, trying to predict outcomes, trying to ensure that nothing would go wrong. But the more he thought, the more anxious he became. One evening, exhausted and overwhelmed, he stepped outside. The sky was vast, the stars scattered like silent witnesses. And for a moment, he stopped thinking, not because he forced himself to, but because something greater captured his attention. And in that stillness, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Relief, not because his problems were solved, but because he was no longer trapped inside them. You see, the mind narrows your world. It pulls you into a small space of analysis and repetition. But awareness, presence, expands you again. It reconnects you to something larger, something infinite. This is why spiritual traditions often speak of stillness, of silence, of being present, not as an escape from life, but as a return to it. Because when you are truly present, overthinking cannot survive, but as a return to it. Because when you are truly present, overthinking cannot survive. Try to notice this. The next time your mind begins to race, bring your attention to something simple. Your breath, the feeling of your hands, the sound of the wind, not as a technique to fix yourself, but as a gentle reminder that life is happening here, not in the endless stories of the mind. And slowly, as you return to the present again and again, the mind begins to loosen its hold. But there is something even deeper, something that touches the very heart of overthinking, and that is trust. Not just trust in outcomes, but trust in yourself. Trust that you are capable of handling whatever comes, because often overthinking is not about the situation itself. It is about the fear that you will not be able to cope with it. So you try to prepare, to predict, to control. But what if, instead of trying to control everything, you trusted your ability to respond? What if you believed deeply that no matter what happens, you will find a way through? This kind of trust changes everything. It shifts you from fear to faith. And faith is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to move forward despite it. There is a quiet message that echoes through every spiritual path that you are not alone in this, that there is a presence, a divine intelligence, walking with you, guiding you. Even when you cannot see it, when you begin to feel this, truly feel it, something inside you relaxes. The need to overthink, to control, to figure everything out, it begins to fade. Because you realize you are not carrying life by yourself. There is a beautiful reflection that says, when you cannot trace his hand, trust his heart. And perhaps this is what overthinking forgets. It forgets the heart. It becomes so focused on the mind, on logic, on analysis, that it loses touch with the deeper wisdom within you. The heart does not overthink. It knows. It knows when something feels right. It knows when to let go. It knows when to trust. But its voice is soft, and the noise of overthinking often drowns it out. So part of this journey is learning to listen again, to slow down, to quiet the mind just enough, so that you can hear the inner guidance, not as a loud command, but as a gentle feeling, a subtle sense of direction. And the more you trust it, the stronger it becomes. There will still be moments when the mind returns with its familiar patterns. It will question you, doubt you, pull you back into old habits. But now you will recognize it. You will see it for what it is. And instead of getting lost in it, you will smile softly and return to the present. Return to your breath, return to your faith, return to your faith, return to the knowing that you do not need to have everything figured out right now. Because life is not asking you to solve it all at once. It is simply asking you to be here, to take the next step, to trust the unfolding. There is a quiet strength in this way of living, a strength that does not come from control, but from surrender, a strength that does not rely on certainty, but on faith. And as you continue to walk this path, something beautiful begins to take root within you. A deep sense of peace, not because life has become perfect, but because you have learned to meet it differently. You no longer fight every thought. You no longer chase every answer. You no longer fear every unknown. Instead, you allow, you trust, you let go again and again, and in doing so, you begin to experience life in a way that overthinking could never offer. Freely, lightly, peacefully. So if your mind feels heavy right now, if the thoughts seem endless, know this. You are not broken. You are simply caught in a habit that can be gently released. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, one act of trust at a time. And even when it feels difficult, even when the mind refuses to quiet, remember this: you are not the chaos. You are the calm beneath it. And that calm is always there, waiting for you to return. Hold on to this truth and walk forward with patience, with faith, with trust in the one who sees the whole path, even when you can only see a single step. You are being guided even now. And now, as you stand at this quiet threshold within yourself, something feels different, doesn't it? Not because the world has changed, not because every question has been answered, but because something inside you has softened. Something has begun to let go. Overthinking once felt like a necessity, like something you had to do in order to survive, to succeed, to avoid pain. It told you that if you just thought a little more, planned a little better, analyzed a little deeper, you would finally arrive at peace. But now you can see it more clearly. Peace was never waiting at the end of your thoughts. It was waiting beneath them. There is a gentle truth that has been unfolding through every moment of this journey, that you are not here to control life. You are here to experience it, fully, openly, with all its uncertainty, all its beauty, all its mystery. And yes, there will still be moments when the mind rises again, when it tries to pull you back into its familiar loops. It will whisper, "What if something goes wrong? What if you made a mistake? What if you are not enough?" But now, you know how to listen differently. You no longer take every thought as truth. You no longer follow every fear as if it were a command. Instead, you pause, you breathe, you observe. And in that pause, you remember. You remember that you are held, that you are guided, that you are not alone in this vast unfolding life. There was once a traveler who walked along an uncertain path. The road twisted and turned, sometimes clear, sometimes hidden, and often he would stop and try to map out the entire journey ahead. He would sit for hours, worrying about what lay beyond the next hill, fearing what he could not see. One day, an old voice within him whispered, "Why are you trying to see the whole road when you have been given just enough light for the next step?" And in that moment he stood up. He looked down, not far ahead, just at the ground beneath his feet. And he took one step, then another. And as he walked, something incredible happened. The path began to reveal itself, not all at once, but exactly when he needed it. That is how life works, not in grand, complete answers, but in small, faithful steps. Overthinking tries to steal this from you. It tries to convince you that you must see everything before you move, that you must understand everything before you trust. But faith invites you to walk anyway, even in uncertainty, even in doubt, even when the mind is not quiet. Because faith does not require a silent mind, it requires an open heart. And your heart knows the way. So when the thoughts come again, as they will, do not resist them harshly. Do not judge yourself. Simply return gently to this moment. Return to your breath. Return to your awareness. Return to the quiet knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. There is nothing you need to solve right now. Nothing you need to prove. Nothing you need to control. Just this moment, this breath, this step. And in this simplicity, there is a profound peace. A peace that does not depend on circumstances. A peace that does not require certainty. A peace that flows from trust. Trust in God, in His timing, in His wisdom. Trust that what is meant for you will find you, and what is not will gently pass. Trust that even your struggles, even your moments of overthinking are part of your growth, part of your awakening. Nothing is wasted. Every thought, every feeling, every experience is guiding you back to yourself, back to truth, back to peace. So let go, not all at once, but little by little. Let go of the need to have everything figured out. Let go of the burden of constant thinking. Let go and allow life to carry you for a while. And as you do, you will begin to feel it. A quiet presence, steady, unshaken, always there. That is who you truly are, not the restless mind, not the endless thoughts, but the awareness behind them, the stillness beneath them, the soul that remains untouched. And in that realization, there is freedom, a deep sacred freedom that no fear can take away. So walk gently from here, with patience in your heart, with faith in your spirit, and with trust in the path that is unfolding before you. Even when you cannot see it clearly, even when the mind begins to question again. Remember this: you are not lost. You are being led. Then come closer, just for a moment, not with your body, but with your awareness. Let everything else fade into the background, the noise, the worries, the endless questions, and just be here, because this is where it all comes together. You have walked through the maze of your own mind. You have seen how overthinking rises like a storm, how it pulls you into fear, into doubt, into the illusion that you must control everything to be safe. You have felt its wag. HT, the sleepless nights, the restless days, the constant searching for answers that never seem to arrive. And yet, through all of it, something within you remained untouched. Something quiet. Something still, something deeply connected to truth. That is your soul. That is the place where faith lives. And now you begin to understand. Overthinking was never the real problem. It was only a symptom, a sign that you had drifted too far into the mind and too far away from trust. But you are returning now. Slowly, gently, you are returning to the present moment, and returning to the present moment, where life is not a problem to solve, but a gift to experience. Returning to your breath, where peace is not something you chase, but something you remember. Returning to God. Returning to God, where you realize that you were never alone, not even for a second. Every worry you carried, He saw it. Every fear that kept you awake, He understood it. Every moment you felt lost in your thoughts, He was there, waiting patiently, not to judge you, but to guide you back. And maybe, just maybe, overthinking was part of that journey, because it brought you here. To this realization, to this stillness, to this quiet awakening. Now listen carefully, not with your ears, but with your heart. You do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need to control every outcome. You do not need to silence every thought. All you need is to trust. Trust that the path is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust that even in uncertainty, there is purpose. Trust that even in confusion, there is guidance. And most of all, trust that you are held by something greater than your fears, greater than your thoughts, greater than anything your mind can imagine. So from this moment on, walk differently. When the mind begins to race, pause and remember, When fear begins to rise, breathe and surrender. When you feel lost, low. Okay, within, and trust. Because the answers you have been searching for were never outside of you. They were always here, hidden beneath the noise, waiting for you to become still enough to hear them. And now, before you go, let us rest in one final moment together, a quiet, sacred prayer, not spoken loudly, but felt deeply. Dear God, you who see what I cannot see, you who understand what I cannot understand, I place my restless mind in your hands. Where there is overthinking, bring stillness. Where there is fear, bring trust. Where there is confusion, bring light. Teach me to release what I cannot control and to walk with faith in what I cannot yet see. Remind me again and again that I am not alone, that I am guided, that I am held, and in every moment of doubt, lead me back to peace. Stay here for a second, just breathe. You are okay. Not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. And that is peace.
It's a curious thing about human beings. We keep trying to explain ourselves to those who have no intention of understanding. Not because they don't want to hear us, but because they can't. They're watching a different movie altogether. And here you are, standing outside the theater, trying to explain the plot of your film to someone who's still convinced they're watching theirs. It's exhausting, isn't it? This constant need to justify, to clarify, to make people understand. But what if I told you that the very act of explaining yourself to certain people is like trying to describe color to someone who's determined to see only in black and white? We've been taught that communication is the answer to everything, that if we could just find the right words, the perfect explanation, then surely people would understand. But the truth is far more interesting than that. Some people are so caught up in their own mental constructions, so hypnotized by their own interpretations of reality, that your words become nothing more than noise. And the harder you try to break through, the more energy you lose. It's like shouting into a wind tunnel. The sound goes out, but it never reaches its destination. So let me ask you something. How much of your life have you wasted trying to convince people who were never going to be convinced? How many times have you repeated yourself, rephrased yourself, exhausted yourself? All in the hope that this time they'll finally get it. And what happened? They twisted your words. They heard what they wanted to hear. They made you the villain in their story, no matter how carefully you explained yourself. This is not an accident. This is not a failure of communication. This is a collision between two entirely different states of consciousness. Now, before we go any further, let me be clear about something. I'm not talking about healthy disagreement. I'm not talking about people who genuinely want to understand you but see things differently. I'm talking about something else entirely. I'm talking about people who are living in a kind of trance, a self-created prison of beliefs and illusions, so solid that nothing you say can penetrate it. And the reason nothing penetrates is because they're not interested in truth. They're interested in being right. They're interested in protecting their version of reality, even if that version bears no resemblance to what's actually happening. The moment you realize this, everything changes, because you stop taking it personally. You stop thinking there's something wrong with your words. You realize that the problem was never your explanation. The problem is that you're speaking to someone who has already decided what you mean, what you are, and what you represent. And no amount of explaining will change that. It's like trying to reason with a dream. The dream doesn't care about your logic. It follows its own rules. Let me tell you what happens when you try to explain yourself to someone trapped in illusion. First, you waste your energy. And I don't mean just a little bit of energy. I mean the kind of deep soul-level exhaustion that comes from fighting a battle that was rigged from the start. You pour yourself out trying to be understood, And what do you get back? Confusion, accusations, more questions. It's a loop that never ends because the other person is not interested in understanding. They're interested in their own narrative. And you, my friend, are just a character in their story. A character they've already written. The ancient wisdom traditions understood this. They knew that not everyone is ready to hear the truth. Not everyone can handle it. Some people need their illusions. They need them to survive. Take away their illusions, and they crumble. So they defend those illusions with everything they have. They'll twist your words, attack your character, and if you're still trying to explain yourself to them, you're actually helping them maintain the illusion. Because every time you engage, you give them something to resist. You give them a reason to dig in deeper. There's a story I once heard about a man who spent his entire life trying to convince his neighbor that the sky was blue. The neighbor insisted it was green. So the man brought diagrams, photographs, scientific explanations. He even brought other people to confirm that yes, the sky is blue. But the neighbor wouldn't budge. Green, he said. It's green. And one day, exhausted and defeated, the man gave up. He stopped trying to convince his neighbor. He stopped talking about the sky altogether. And you know what happened? The neighbor became furious. Because without the argument, without the conflict, the neighbor had to face something terrifying, the possibility that he might be wrong. This is what happens when you stop explaining yourself to people trapped in illusion. They get angry, they escalate, they accuse you of abandoning them, of being cold, of not caring. But here's the secret. Their anger is not about you, it's about them. It's about the fact that your silence forces them to look at themselves. And looking at yourself when you've been living in illusion is one of the most uncomfortable things a person can do. So they'd rather you keep talking, keep explaining, keep playing your part in their drama, because as long as you're engaged, they don't have to change. But you don't have to play that game anymore. You can step back, you can be quiet. You can let them have their version of reality without feeling the need to correct it. This is not indifference, this is wisdom. This is understanding that some battles are not yours to fight. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you stop explaining yourself, something shifts. You begin to conserve your energy. You begin to protect what's sacred, your peace, your clarity, your sense of self. These things are precious. And when you throw them into conversations with people who can't receive them, you're wasting treasure. You're casting pearls before swine, as the saying goes. Not because the people are bad, but because they're not ready, they're not capable of seeing the value in what you're offering. And so they trample it, they mock it. They use it against you. Think about the conversations you've had recently, the ones that left you feeling drained, misunderstood, frustrated. Now ask yourself, was the other person actually listening? Or were they waiting for their turn to talk? Were they trying to understand your perspective? Or were they simply defending their own? If it's the latter, then you were explaining yourself to someone who was never going to hear you. And the energy you spent was energy you'll never get back. There's a certain kind of person who thrives on this dynamic. They love to pull you into endless explanations because it gives them power. The more you explain, the more ammunition they have. They'll take your words, twist them, and throw them back at you in ways you never intended. They'll say, "But you said this," when you said nothing of the sort. They'll interpret your silence as guilt, your patience as weakness, your kindness as manipulation. And no matter what you do, no matter how clearly you speak, they'll find a way to misunderstand you. Because understanding you would require them to change. And change is terrifying. So what do? You stop. You stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop trying to make them see. Because the truth is, they already see. They just don't like what they see. And that's not your problem. Your problem is that you've been taking responsibility for their perception. You've been acting as though their misunderstanding is your failure. But it's not. Their misunderstanding is their choice. Let me tell you what happens when you embrace silence. First, you reclaim your power. When you stop giving explanations, you stop giving away your authority. You stop acting as though you need their approval, their validation, their understanding. You simply are. And there's something incredibly powerful about that. It's the power of a person who no longer needs to defend their existence. The power of someone who knows their worth is not determined by whether others can see it. Second, you create space. Space for truth to emerge on its own. Space for the other person to sit with their own thoughts without your constant input. Space for God, or the universe, or whatever you want to call that deeper intelligence, to work. When you're always talking, always explaining, you fill up all the space. But when you're silent, something else can enter, and often that something else is far more effective than anything you could have said. Third, you begin to discern. You begin to see who is genuinely interested in understanding you and who is simply interested in the drama. The people who truly care will accept your silence with grace. They'll give you space. They'll trust that you have your reasons. But the people who are trapped in illusion will panic. They'll demand explanations. They'll accuse you of being secretive, distant, cold. And in their reaction, they'll reveal exactly why you were right to stop explaining in the first place. Now let's talk about what silence is not. Silence is not avoidance. It's not running away from difficult conversations or refusing to communicate when communication is genuinely needed. Silence is discernment. It's knowing when words will help and when they'll only make things worse. It's recognizing that some people are not ready for your truth, and that's okay. You don't need everyone to be ready. You just need to be wise enough not to waste your pearls on those who can't appreciate them. Silence is also not punishment. It's not a way of getting back at someone or making them feel bad. It's simply a boundary, a way of saying, I will not participate in this particular dance anymore. Because the dance of endless explanation is exhausting. It keeps you small. It keeps you stuck. And it keeps the other person stuck too, because they never have to face their own illusions, as long as you're there to argue with them. Here's the thing about illusion. It's comfortable. It's familiar. People build entire identities around their illusions. They construct elaborate mental frameworks to support them. And when you come along with your truth, your clarity, your different perspective, you're threatening the entire structure. You're asking them to tear down what they've spent years building. And most people won't do that. They'll defend their illusion with everything they have. They'll fight you, blame you, vilify you, anything to keep their world intact. And you know what? That's their right. They have every right to live in whatever reality they choose. But you have a right too. You have the right to stop exhausting yourself trying to change their mind. You have the right to walk away from conversations that go nowhere. You have the right to protect your energy, your peace, your sanity. And you exercise that right through silence, through the simple, powerful act of not engaging. There's an old saying that goes something like this: never argue with a fool. Onlookers may not be able to tell the difference. But I'd take it a step further. Never explain yourself to someone who has already decided what you are, because no explanation will change their mind. They've made their judgment. They've written their story, and you're wasting your breath trying to edit it. Instead, save your words for those who can hear them. Save your energy for relationships that actually nourish you. Save your truth for people who are hungry for it. Because there are people out there who will understand you without lengthy explanations. There are people who will see you clearly without you having to perform, or prove, or justify. And those are the people worth your time. But what about the others? What about the people trapped in illusion who keep demanding your attention, your explanations, your defense? Let them go, not with anger or resentment, but with compassion. Let them have their illusion. Let them believe whatever they need to believe, and trust that if they're meant to wake up, they will. But it won't be because you convinced them. It will be because life itself taught them. And life is a far better teacher than you could ever be. So here's what I'm asking you to do. The next time someone demands an explanation from you, someone who has already decided what you are, what you meant, what you did, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, will this explanation actually help? Or will it just give them more material to misinterpret? If it's the latter, stay silent. Let them sit with their assumptions. Let them fill in the blanks however they want. Because their interpretation says far more about them than it does about you. And in that silence, you'll find something extraordinary. You'll find yourself, not the version of yourself that bends and twists to be understood. Not the version that exhausts itself trying to please everyone. But the real you. The you that exists regardless of whether anyone understands or not. The you that doesn't need validation because it knows its own truth. And that version of you is far more powerful than any explanation you could ever give. Stop explaining yourself to people trapped in illusion, not because you're giving up on them, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that some people aren't ready to see, and that's okay. Let them have their blindness. Let them have their confusion. Let them have their version of you. Because the real you, the one that knows, the one that sees, the one that simply is, doesn't need their approval. Your peace is more valuable than their understanding. Your energy is more precious than their acceptance. Your truth is more important than their opinion. Remember that. Hold on to that. And the next time you feel that familiar urge to explain, to defend, to justify, just stop. Be still. Be quiet. Be free. Because silence, my friend, is not the absence of communication. It's the presence of wisdom. And wisdom knows when to speak and when to simply let things be.
There is a strange feeling that follows us through life, even when we seem to have all the things we once wished for. You might notice it on quiet evenings, when everything is finally still, the bills are paid, the kitchen is clean, the lights are soft, and yet something inside you whispers, there must be more. It is not greed, not exactly. It is an ache, an almost sacred restlessness, as if the mind refuses to believe that satisfaction could ever be simple. We are taught from childhood that money is the measure of safety, that to be rich is to be free. But the odd thing is that very few people who are surrounded by abundance ever truly feel free. They are anxious about losing it, suspicious of those who want it, and haunted by the idea that it might one day stop flowing. So even when the river of wealth runs wide, they still feel thirsty. You see, money is not a thing we hold. It is a story we tell. A story about control, about certainty, about being on the right side of fate. But the story keeps changing, and we keep rewriting it. One day, you tell yourself that if you could only earn a little more, you'd finally relax. The next, you have more, and you find new ways to be tense. You upgrade the dream, not because you need to, but because you no longer know how to stop chasing. This is the subtle tragedy of modern life. You can have comfort without peace. You can have wealth without trust. You can have options and still be trapped. And you can spend your entire existence trying to feel what cannot be bought, the quiet assurance that you are already complete. It is curious that the richer a society becomes, the less satisfied its people seem to feel. We accumulate things faster than we can enjoy them. We rush to consume experiences like travelers who are afraid their passports will expire. Even leisure becomes a form of work. We must prove that we are happy, prove that we are fulfilled, prove that our success was not a mistake. And yet, the old problem persists. The feeling of lack. A man who owns a house may still lie awake, worrying about losing it. A woman who finally earns her dream income may suddenly fear that it won't be enough next year. It is never the numbers in the bank that trouble us. It is the belief that we are still incomplete, that someone, somewhere, is ahead. But what does it mean to be rich? Is it to have more than others? Or is it to need less? You can only feel wealth by contrast. If everyone had 1 million, no one would feel rich. If no one had a home, even a single room would feel like a palace. Our sense of abundance is not determined by possession, but by perception, by the game of comparison we unconsciously play every day. The trouble with comparison is that it never ends. There will always be someone who has gone farther, who has achieved sooner, who seems to float through life with less friction than you. But you never see the whole story. You see the highlight reel, the house, the smile, the success, not the anxiety behind it. And so we keep reaching, we keep pushing, we keep moving the goalpost just beyond the horizon, because stopping feels dangerous, almost shameful, as though contentment were a kind of failure. But you cannot chase peace and catch it. You can only allow it. Money is the same. The more you treat it as something to trap, the faster it runs from you. Because money, like life itself, moves in cycles. It flows in, it flows out, it circulates. And when you grip it too tightly, you stop its rhythm. If you truly look, you'll notice that every major financial decision you've ever made was not just about money, it was about what money symbolized. Security, recognition, freedom, love, control. Every purchase, every job, every dream of someday was a coded way of saying, I want to feel safe. But the great paradox is that the moment you tie your safety to something that can fluctuate, you guarantee your insecurity. This is why even wealthy people rarely feel rich. They have built their peace on sand. The market shifts, the company falters, the economy trembles, and the heart trembles with it. But what if you discovered that the sense of richness you're longing for has nothing to do with the balance in your account and everything to do with your relationship to enoughness? Enough is a quiet word. It does not shout like success or sparkle like wealth. It whispers. It says, you may stop now. But the modern mind is deaf to that whisper, because stopping looks too much like losing. We have confused contentment with complacency. Yet the only way to ever feel truly rich is to recognize that you already possess the only wealth that matters, the capacity to be here now without needing the next thing to make it worthwhile. You may have noticed that the richest moments of your life were never the most expensive ones. They were the mornings when the sun touched your window at just the right angle, the laughter that cost nothing, the meal that tasted better because you had someone to share it with. These are not moments of scarcity. They are proof that wealth was never the issue. Attention was. Attention is the new currency of our age. What you give your focus to, you empower. If your attention is constantly orbiting what's missing, then even a fortune will feel fragile. But if your attention settles into what is already here, then even the simplest life will feel abundant. We often think money will finally make us present, that once the bills are gone, the debt erased, the worry silenced, then we will relax. But life has a strange sense of humor. It gives you peace the moment you stop waiting for peace to be purchased. The moment you stop making contentment conditional on external gain, you realize that freedom was never hiding in the bank. It was hiding in your breath. It is a peculiar madness to believe that the value of life depends on the size of one's savings. Yet most people spend their best years trading time, the one thing they can never recover, for figures that exist only as digital ghosts on a screen. The irony is exquisite. We sacrifice the living moment for symbols of potential moments. You do not live in the future that your money promises. You live here, in this pulse, in this breath. And when that breath is over, you cannot spend what you have stored. But the culture around us whispers endlessly, you must prepare, you must accumulate, you must secure yourself. We build whole identities on this premise. The worker becomes his salary, The entrepreneur becomes her valuation. The artist becomes the market's approval. And in the process, we forget the original reason we sought wealth in the first place, to be free to live. Freedom cannot be bought. It is a realization, not a transaction. You may have noticed that those who spend their lives chasing financial freedom rarely find it, because the chase becomes the prison. The moment they reach one target, another appears. They're like sailors who keep moving the island on the map, always rowing toward a shore that never existed. To understand this, you must first see that money is not evil, nor is it sacred. It is neutral, pure energy, pure potential. It becomes poison only when you project your fears and hopes upon it. When you treat it as the medicine for every insecurity, it amplifies the sickness. But when you treat it as a tool, a rhythm, a movement of life itself, it begins to flow naturally again. Most people do not have a money problem. They have a meaning problem. They believe that by accumulating enough, they will one day escape uncertainty. But uncertainty is not an obstacle. It is the very texture of existence. You cannot buy your way out of it. You can only dance with it. Think of the ocean. The waves rise and fall. No one wave lasts forever, yet the ocean remains whole. Money is like that. It rises and falls in the tides of your life. Some seasons bring abundance, others require trust, but both are necessary for the rhythm to stay alive. You cannot have the flow without the ebb. Yet our minds resist this natural movement. We want to lock the river in a vault. We build dams of worry, hoarding, and fear, and then we wonder why we no longer feel the joy of its movement. You might feel it too, that heavy sense that you can never rest, because if you rest, the flow will stop. But it doesn't. It only stops when you stop trusting it. There are people who have very little, yet move through life with quiet confidence. Their peace is not because they are ignorant of difficulty, but because they are intimate with it. They have learned that wealth does not guarantee security any more than poverty guarantees despair. What matters is the relationship not between you and your money, but between you and your own sense of enoughness. You may have enough and still feel poor because you have not learned to feel what you already possess. The mind is trained to seek, not to notice. It treats satisfaction as a sign to move the target farther. That is why the feeling of richness cannot arise from what you own. It arises from how deeply you allow yourself to be owned by this present moment. And that is the great secret. You cannot hold wealth, but wealth can hold you when you stop demanding that it make you feel safe. When you stop trying to make money your savior, you begin to see that life has already been carrying you all along. If you look closely, every moment of your life has been financed by something far deeper than currency, the sheer generosity of existence itself. The sunlight that costs nothing, the breath that renews itself, the people who appear when you least expect it. These are not transactions, they are testaments that abundance has always been the ground beneath your feet. The reason you never feel rich is not that you lack something material, but that you have mistaken the symbol of wealth for the experience of it. And until that illusion is seen through, you could fill every account you own and still wake in the night wondering what's missing. So, pause for a moment. Feel the air moving in and out. Notice that it does not charge rent for entry. Notice that the stars still shine whether your stocks go up or down. Notice that life, in its strange and quiet way, has never stopped providing what is essential. Perhaps that is where real richness begins, in remembering that you were never meant to feel rich by having more, but by realizing that you are already part of something that cannot be owned. At some point, we must ask ourselves what it truly means to have enough. The question sounds simple, almost childish, but it hides the key to our deepest confusion. Enough is not a number, it is a relationship. You cannot measure it with a calculator because it depends on something that cannot be counted, the quality of your awareness. You see, life has never been about accumulation. It has always been about participation. When you are fully participating in the dance of existence, wealth is irrelevant. Whether you are sitting in a palace or beneath a tree, the sense of completeness comes from the same place, the unbroken presence of consciousness itself. But when you forget that, when you identify only with the fragments you can own or display, you feel divided from life, and the divided self can never feel rich. Consider for a moment how the idea of money arose. Once, there was only exchange. A fisherman traded his catch for the farmer's grain. The potter gave a bowl for a loaf of bread. It was a rhythm of giving and receiving, balanced by trust. But as soon as we invented symbolic wealth, the symbol became more important than the exchange. The coin replaced the conversation. The note replaced the handshake. We began to value not the act of giving, but the accumulation of the tokens that represented it. And so humanity found itself in an odd paradox. We created money to make life easier, but then made life revolve around money. We built systems that reward hoarding instead of sharing, growth instead of sufficiency, profit instead of peace. And yet the truth has not changed. You cannot take a single cent with you when you go. The wealth that truly matters is the kind you can still feel when everything else is gone. When you look around, you may notice that people often confuse abundance with excess. Abundance is the experience of fullness. Excess is the refusal to stop. Abundance nourishes, excess intoxicates. One expands your awareness, the other narrows it until you can no longer taste what you consume. A man in a small home can live abundantly if his heart is spacious. A man in a mansion can live in poverty if his soul is cramped by fear. But the problem is not greed, not really. It is confusion. We have mistaken the visible symbols of wealth for the invisible feeling of wholeness they were meant to point toward. And so we keep grasping for more, like a person trying to hold sunlight in their hands. Real richness begins the moment you stop trying to store light and start learning to see it. To feel rich is to recognize that the miracle is not that you possess things, but that things exist at all. That you are here, breathing, conscious, surrounded by textures and sounds and colors that no amount of currency could ever recreate. Look closely at the smallest details, the way the steam curls from your morning tea, the quiet rhythm of your footsteps on the floor, the warmth of someone's voice saying your name. These are not luxuries. These are wealth, but because we are taught to think of life as a ledger, we keep translating these moments into costs and gains. How much did it take? What did I earn? What did I lose? As long as the mind is caught in that arithmetic, it cannot see the truth that the value of a moment is not in what it costs, but in how deeply it is lived. You can spend your entire life chasing security and die without ever feeling safe, or you can discover here and now that safety is not the absence of risk, but the willingness to be present with it. This is why the truly wealthy are not those who have conquered uncertainty, but those who have made peace with it. They understand that life is not meant to be controlled, but experienced. The richest people in spirit are not those who hold everything tightly, but those who have learned to let everything go again and again without losing the capacity to trust. There is a freedom that appears only when you no longer demand that the world guarantee you anything. It is the freedom of being able to breathe without bargaining. The freedom of knowing that your worth does not rise and fall with the market or with the approval of others. When you realize this, something subtle shifts. The pursuit of wealth turns inward. You begin to invest, not in possessions, but in perception. You become interested in the quality of your attention, how present you are when you speak, how open you are when you listen, how generous you are when you act. That is the real portfolio of the spirit. You see, all along, life has been offering you dividends of awareness. Every challenge, every failure, every success, all of it has been teaching you how to wake up. But you cannot cash those lessons in a bank. their value is in their transformation. And so the question is not how to make more, but how to mean more. How to let your actions carry the weight of awareness. How to allow even the simplest gesture, a smile, a meal, a moment of silence, to become a declaration of gratitude for the wealth that is already surrounding you. People often ask, but what about ambition? Should I not strive? Of course you should strive, but know what you are striving for. There is nothing wrong with earning money, creating art, or building a company. What matters is whether your work is an expression of love or a performance of fear. When it comes from love, it expands you. When it comes from fear, it drains you. A man who works from love is not working for security. He is working because he is alive. He moves with the current of life instead of against it. He understands that what he creates is not for possession, but participation. The reward is not the result, but the doing. And when you truly work in that spirit, money ceases to be an obsession and becomes a natural byproduct of energy well spent. It flows to you not as proof of worth, but as a reflection of alignment. The difficulty, of course, is that we are surrounded by noise, a culture built on convincing us that we are always one purchase away from happiness. Every advertisement whispers the same sermon. You are not enough, but we can sell you the missing piece. And because we are tired, uncertain, and hungry for relief, we believe it. We keep feeding a hunger that cannot be satisfied, because it is not physical, it is spiritual. To be spiritually hungry is not wrong. It is the first step toward awakening. But to confuse spiritual hunger with material lack is to wander forever. The moment you understand that what you crave is not more, but meaning, everything changes. You stop trying to fill the silence with noise or the stillness with motion. You begin to see that the discomfort of not enough is simply the invitation to meet yourself more deeply. It is not a curse, but a doorway. The moment you stop running from it, it opens. To feel rich, then, is to return to that inner stillness and find that you have never truly been poor. That the wealth you sought outside was always an echo of the abundance within. You realize that your entire life has been funded by something infinite, the same mystery that animates the trees, the rivers, the stars. It is a strange discovery to make because it dissolves the game entirely. You can still earn, still build, still plan for the future, but now you do it with lightness. You are no longer trying to prove your worth, you are simply expressing it. The anxiety of comparison fades, the compulsion to outdo disappears. What remains is participation, a pure willingness to live. And when you live like that, money becomes what it was meant to be, a servant, not a master. It moves through you as easily as breath, supporting what needs to unfold, then leaving when it is time. You trust that it will return when it is needed, because you are no longer clinging to its form. You are rooted in the deeper flow beneath it, the pulse of life itself. Imagine for a moment that you were suddenly invisible to society. No one could see your possessions, your titles, or your success. What would remain of you then? That remainder, the essence that cannot be measured or marketed, that is your true wealth. Everything else is temporary. There will come a day when your last transaction is complete, your last ambition satisfied, your last coin spent. And in that moment, all that will matter is whether you have learned how to be rich in presence, whether you can meet the final silence with gratitude instead of fear. If you have lived in constant hunger for more, death will feel like theft. But if you have lived in awareness of enough, death will feel like completion. The world will always offer you reasons to worry. The market will fall. Prices will rise. The future will tremble. But the one thing that cannot be shaken is the realization that wealth was never outside you. It was the consciousness through which you perceived the world. It was the gratitude that transformed necessity into blessing, repetition into ritual, ordinary life into sacredness. You are not poor because you lack things. You are poor only when you forget how to see. So, learn to see again. See the way the morning light filters through the curtain. See the faces of those you love. See the fleeting moments that slip between your plans. They are all pieces of gold scattered freely across the day. You don't have to own them, you only have to notice them. One day, you will look back and realize that the moments you thought were small were the richest of all. That the peace you chased through decades of work was already waiting for you, quietly, in the pause between breaths. To feel rich is not to escape life's uncertainty, but to bow to it, to say yes to each wave as it comes, and yes again when it goes. To know that what is yours will always find its way to you, because you are already part of the same current that carries everything else. And when that realization settles in your bones, you no longer ask, "Do I have enough?" You simply whisper, "I am enough." That is where the chase ends. That is where wealth begins. There comes a moment in every human life when the very thing you depend on, the thing you've trusted since childhood, simply stops working, the mechanism of effort. You push and push, you try to hold yourself together, you devote yourself to improvement, to goals, to plans, to becoming someone you can be proud of, and one day, without warning, the whole engine seizes. Nothing responds, nothing moves. You work harder, thinking perhaps you miscalculated, perhaps you didn't give enough, perhaps you simply have to exert more force. But the more you push, the less life offers in return. It is a bewildering kind of silence. You reach out into life with both hands, and it feels as though the universe has quietly stepped back. You find yourself asking questions you thought you had outgrown. Why isn't this working? What am I missing? Why does it feel like I am doing everything and going nowhere? And beneath those questions is another one, far more frightening, but also far more honest. What if nothing I do is enough? Now, that is the moment where most people panic. They scramble. They tighten their grip. They look for new techniques, new hacks, new philosophies promising results. But all of that is simply more effort, more resistance, more of the same fuel that was already burning you out. You see, life has a very peculiar way of speaking when you're going too fast. It stops answering, not as a punishment, but as a way of getting your attention. You think effort is what moves life, but it is actually life that moves you. And when life wants you still, when it wants you quiet, when it wants you to finally hear what lies beneath the noise of your striving, it takes away the illusion of forward motion. You may interpret that as failure, but it is simply a pause, a sacred pause. You think you've been abandoned by momentum, but in truth you have only been returned to yourself. Just look at the world. Rivers do not rush every moment. Even the tides rest. The seasons linger before shifting. A tree does not strain upward each day. Growth comes in pulses, in breaths. Expansion, stillness. Expansion, stillness. But the human mind insists that stillness means something is wrong. It calls it stagnation. It calls it failure. And because the world keeps praising endless motion, you have come to believe that if you are not advancing, you are falling behind. But life is not linear. It never has been. It spirals, it circles, it pauses, it waits for the right conditions. If you look carefully at the times when nothing moved for you, you will see that they were shaping you in ways action never could. People ask, why am I trying so hard and seeing nothing? And the answer is very simple. Because the part of you doing the trying is not the part that is meant to move. There is a deeper intelligence in you, one that does not measure your worth by progress, one that does not calculate value based on effort. It is the same intelligence that grows your hair and heals your wounds and keeps your heart beating while you sleep. It does not need your effort. In fact, your effort often gets in its way. Think of someone drowning. Their instinct is to thrash, to claw at the water, to fight for control. But the harder they struggle, the faster they sink. Only when they stop fighting, when they allow themselves to float, does the water hold them up. In the same way, your effort can sometimes be the very thing pulling you under. You are trying to swim in places where you are meant to float. Now, that does not mean effort is wrong. Effort has its place. But when effort is fueled by fear, by desperation, by the need to prove something to yourself or to the world, it becomes a burden. You carry it like a weight, imagining it will deliver you to some distant shore where everything finally makes sense. But effort cannot deliver you to a place that already exists beneath your feet. There is a reason your effort led nowhere, because the direction you were forcing yourself toward was never meant for you. If the door refuses to open, it is because there is nothing for you behind it. You may not see this now. You may think all your plans were sensible and well constructed. But the universe does not organize itself according to your expectations. It organizes itself according to resonance, according to timing, according to the unfolding of things that you cannot yet see. And when you push against that unfolding, the universe does not punish you. It simply waits. It waits for the moment you stop trying to bend life into the shape you prefer. It waits for the moment you surrender your insistence that you know what is best for you. It waits for the moment you are still enough to feel the movement of life itself. Because what feels like nowhere is not the absence of direction. It is the clearing of direction, the ground being leveled, the noise being softened, so that when life finally moves you, it moves you cleanly, effortlessly, without the friction of your resistance. Many people think the universe rewards effort, but look closely. The universe rewards alignment. Effort without alignment leads nowhere. Alignment without effort leads everywhere. You may not realize it, but the version of you that was pushing so hard no longer exists. Something in you is dying. Something in you is dissolving, not to hurt you, but to make space. The life that effort built is too small for who you are becoming. And life knows this. That is why it blocked you. That is why it held your progress still. You were reaching for a future that was beneath you. Now, none of this makes the moment easier. You wake up and it feels like your mind is foggy, your energy is heavy, your enthusiasm drained. It feels like failure because you have been trained to believe that constant striving is evidence of worth. But what if worth has nothing to do with striving? What if the universe is not measuring how hard you push, but how deeply you listen? You are not stuck. You are being emptied. And emptiness is not a mistake. It is preparation. When a bowl is full of old water, you cannot pour anything new into it. When a room is crowded, no one else can enter. When a path is cluttered, nothing can pass. Life clears you out so that something that actually belongs to you can take shape. But you must be still to see it. You must let the noise of your efforts settle. The modern world has made stillness feel shameful. People ask, what are you working on? What are you building? What are you producing? But no one asks, how deeply are you listening? How fully are you here? How much of yourself is aligned with your own experience? So when your effort leads nowhere, you think you've failed, but really you are being invited to rediscover a way of living that does not rely on exhaustion, a way of living that does not sacrifice the present for the illusion of a future, a way of living that trusts that life, not effort, is the thing that moves you. You are not in the wrong place. You are at the threshold. And thresholds never look like progress. They look like pauses. The universe is not withholding motion from you. It is preparing you for the kind of motion that will not break you. And if you stay with this moment long enough, something begins to shift. Not in the world around you, but in the felt sense of your own being. You start to notice that the tension you've carried for years begins to loosen. The constant background hum of urgency fades, even if only a little. You notice that you can breathe more deeply, even though nothing in your circumstances has changed. This is how the dissolution begins. First in the body, then in the mind, and only later in the life you live. You may not recognize it as movement, because you are looking for movement in the form of results. But the universe often moves you long before you see where it is taking you. You see, effort is loud. It demands. It insists. It clenches its fists and tightens its jaw. Effort says, I must get somewhere. I must achieve something. I must become someone. Effort is the voice of the self that believes it is separate from life, responsible for controlling every outcome, and so it exhausts itself. But life is quiet. Life whispers. Life waits. Life unfolds without strain. It breathes you. It beats your heart. It digests your food without asking your permission. Life does not struggle. Life simply moves. And when your effort leads nowhere, it is usually because life is trying to teach you its rhythm. It is trying to show you that the moment you stop forcing movement, a deeper movement begins. But the mind resists this. It says, if I stop trying, everything will collapse. But what if everything is collapsing precisely because you keep trying to hold together what you have outgrown, trying to push through doors that are no longer meant to open, trying to maintain an identity that is no longer true? There are seasons in your life when you are meant to build, seasons when you are meant to strive, seasons when effort flows easily because you are aligned with the direction of life. But there are also seasons when you are meant to unravel, seasons when effort becomes impossible because something softer, something wiser is asking to be heard. When all your effort leads nowhere, you are in such a season of undoing, a season of clearing, a season of returning to the ground of yourself. You may not realize it yet, but the nowhere you fear is actually the stillness from which true direction emerges. When you look at your life through the lens of the mind, you see stagnation, but through the lens of awareness, you see gestation. Something is forming in you, something you cannot name yet. It is not ambition, it is not desire, it is not a goal. It is a different orientation altogether. A way of relating to life that is not built on effort but on presence. Most people live their lives relying on effort because they have never experienced the intelligence of presence. They don't trust stillness because they never learned to listen. They were taught that life rewards productivity. They were taught that hard work guarantees results. But if you look carefully, you will see that the moments that shaped you the most were rarely the ones you worked hardest for. They were the moments that arrived quietly, unexpectedly, without effort. You did not effort your way into meeting the most important people in your life. You did not effort your way into the moments that changed your heart, the experiences that softened you, the realizations that awakened you. Those came on their own. They came because life brought them. So when effort stops working, it is because life wants to bring you something new, something you cannot arrive at through force, something that requires you to be softer, quieter, more honest with yourself, something that comes only when the mind finally grows tired of its endless pushing and falls into silence. And this silence, uncomfortable as it may be, is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. It is the clearing where truth appears. It is in this silence that you begin to see the difference between the life you were trained to chase and the life that actually belongs to you. You start to question the motives behind your striving. Was it truly for growth? Or was it to avoid feeling unworthy? Was it truly for joy? Or was it for validation? Was it truly aligned with your nature? Or was it aligned with the expectations of others? You may discover that much of your effort was never really yours. It was inherited from fears that were never examined. It was shaped by environments that rewarded burnout. It was fueled by a misunderstanding of what makes life meaningful. When that misunderstanding dissolves, effort falls away on its own, not because you stop caring, but because you stop pretending. You stop pretending that pushing yourself beyond your limits will lead to peace. You stop pretending that success will fill the places inside you that ache. You stop pretending that effort alone can save you from the fear of not being enough. And once you stop pretending, you can finally rest. This rest is not laziness. It is not giving up. It is not weakness. It is a return to sanity. It is a return to alignment. It is the moment when you stop swimming against the current of your own life. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening, but inside, the landscape is changing. Your nervous system begins to unwind. Your thoughts begin to slow. Your breath deepens. The frantic momentum that once carried you begins to dissolve. You are not failing. You are recalibrating. And in this recalibration, you start to notice things you were too busy to see before. The texture of your own awareness, the subtle ways your intuition speaks, the places in your body that have been tight for years, the dreams you abandoned without even realizing you had, the person you became while trying to become someone else. All of this begins to surface. It is not chaos, it is clarity. The truth is that effort was distracting you from yourself. It kept you busy, occupied, forward-focused. It kept you from feeling the deeper longing within you, the longing to simply be, the longing to return to a life that is not constantly demanding something from you, the longing to let life move you instead of trying to drag life behind you. And so, effort stops working. Not because you are unworthy, not because you are unprepared, but because you are being guided into a different mode of living, one where effort is no longer your identity, one where your direction comes from a quiet inner knowing rather than external pressure. This is why the universe so often leads people into these moments of nowhere, not to punish them, but to soften them, not to stop their life, but to redirect it, not to take away their control, but to remind them that they never needed control to begin with. When you reach the point where effort collapses, you begin to encounter the truth that effort was never the real source of your growth. Growth happened in the moments when you were open, when you surrendered, when you let yourself be touched by something deeper than your goals. And that is where you are now, at the threshold between effort and awareness, between striving and being, between noise and silence, between the life you tried to control and the life you are meant to live. If you can allow yourself to rest here, even for a moment, you will begin to feel the faint stirrings of a new movement. It does not rush, it does not demand, it does not require you to force anything. It simply invites you to listen, and in that listening, you will discover that nowhere is not a dead end. It is a doorway, the doorway through which every real change in your life has ever entered. There is a strange and wonderful thing that happens when you begin to trust the doorway that looks like nowhere. At first you approach it cautiously, still believing that perhaps you are making some terrible mistake by allowing your effort to rest. You have been trained for so long to equate movement with meaning that stillness feels like a kind of death. But as you linger there, the mind softens, the body loosens, and the deeper intelligence within you begins to rise like something that has been waiting in the dark for years. It rises slowly, quietly, in the same way dawn approaches the horizon. It does not announce itself, it simply brightens. It reveals. And what it reveals is the space beneath your striving, the part of you that was never exhausted to begin with. There is an awareness in you that has watched your entire life unfold. It has observed your victories and your failures, your moments of clarity and your moments of confusion, your seasons of abundance and your seasons of collapse. It has never been tired because it has never been the one doing the striving. It has only been witnessing. When you arrive in this space, the first thing you feel is relief. Not the kind of relief that comes from solving a problem, but the kind that comes from no longer needing to solve it. You realize that the problem was never your lack of effort, but your reliance on effort. You had mistaken force for intelligence, striving for direction, exhaustion for achievement. And the moment you recognize this, a great exhale moves through your entire being. Life becomes softer. The air feels different. You begin to sense that you are not trudging through a hostile universe, but participating in a movement that has always been supporting you, even when you were resisting it. This is the first quiet shift, the recognition that you are not lost. You were simply moving too quickly to feel the hands that were guiding you. You may think this realization brings immediate peace, but peace is not the first gift. The first gift is honesty, a profound honesty that rises from your chest like a tide that can no longer be pushed back. You begin to see the truth of your exhaustion, the truth of your longing, the truth of the life you have been carrying on your shoulders. And as these truths surface, they do not hurt you, they free you. You realize you have been exhausting yourself with expectations that were never aligned with your nature. You realize you have been chasing a version of yourself that was shaped more by fear than by authenticity. You realize that much of your striving came from the belief that you needed to become extraordinary, to be worthy of rest, of love, of belonging. And when this breaks open inside you, something remarkable happens. You stop running, not because you have nowhere left to go, but because you finally see that the running never brought you closer to anything real. It only brought you deeper into the maze of your own mind, a maze filled with ideals, standards, comparisons, imagined futures, and old wounds disguised as ambition. You were not navigating life. You were navigating your conditioning. And conditioning does not lead forward, it only loops. This is why effort led nowhere, because you were running in circles that only felt like progress. The universe is too kind to let you waste your life in a maze, so it closed the doors that kept you spinning. It exhausted the strategies that no longer served you. It silenced the paths that were fueled by fear, not to punish you, but to liberate you. And liberation begins with stillness. Once you allow this stillness, even reluctantly, life begins to reorganize you from the inside out. It starts gently, like a whisper in the back of your awareness. You notice you are less interested in proving yourself. You notice you are less reactive to the pressures around you. You notice that the urge to force things weakens. You begin to see that you don't need to control life for life to move. It is here that you begin to learn the art of allowing. Allowing does not mean passivity. It does not mean giving up. It means listening. It means recognizing that every movement in life has a rhythm, and that rhythm cannot be rushed. If you push a seed too quickly, it dies. If you force a flower open, it collapses. If you try to make the ocean still, it churns. The nature of things must be honored, and you are part of nature. So when your effort leads nowhere, it is often because you were pushing yourself beyond the rhythm of your own becoming. You were demanding a harvest in the middle of winter. You were insisting on clarity during a season meant for undoing. You were looking for answers in a moment meant for silence. Life knows the rhythm even when you do not. And this is why surrender becomes the second gift. Not surrender to failure, but surrender to the deeper intelligence that is orchestrating your life. A surrender that feels less like giving up and more like being carried. As you settle into this surrender, a new form of strength emerges in you. Not the strength of tension, but the strength of openness. Not the strength of endurance, but the strength of awareness. You begin to notice that you can hold your experience more fully without collapsing under it. You realize that life has always been easier when you are not clutching at it. The mind may protest, saying you must be vigilant, you must plan, you must control, you must do something. But you begin to see that much of what the mind calls control is simply fear wearing a helpful mask. Control has exhausted you for years. Control has kept you in the maze. Control has convinced you that the world is unpredictable and that your safety depends on constant effort. But safety does not come from control. Safety comes from trust, from awareness, from presence, from the understanding that you are not navigating life alone. Life is navigating you. As this understanding deepens, your relationship with yourself changes in subtle but powerful ways. You no longer judge yourself for being tired. You no longer shame yourself for not knowing the next step. You no longer criticize yourself for pausing. Instead, you begin to treat yourself with the gentleness that life has been trying to teach you. You become less interested in rushing, less interested in proving, less interested in perfection, more interested in honesty, more interested in ease, more interested in alignment. This is the beginning of authentic living. You start to notice what drains you and what nourishes you. You start to choose rest without guilt. You start to slow down enough to hear your own intuition, which has been speaking to you all these years, but could not be heard over the noise of your effort. It is in this slowing that life begins to reveal its next direction. Not through pressure, but through pull. Not through force, but through resonance. You feel drawn to things that once seemed unimportant. You find clarity in moments that once felt quiet. You notice openings that were invisible when you were rushing past them. This is how life guides you. Gently, subtly, consistently, and as you follow this pull, something miraculous begins to happen. The movement you have been waiting for returns, but it does not come with strain. It comes with grace. Suddenly, the path that once felt blocked begins to open. Opportunities that once seemed impossible appear naturally. People who resonate with your new way of being begin to enter your life. Conversations align. Timing aligns. Energy aligns. Movement returns. Not because you forced it, but because you became aligned with it. Your life begins to expand again, but now from the inside out, you are not chasing the world, you are meeting it. You begin to realize that the pauses in your life were not interruptions, they were recalibrations. They were the universe adjusting your direction. They were the moments when life was saving you from futures that did not belong to you. Every period where effort led nowhere was a moment where you were being redirected toward a place where effort would be unnecessary. Because alignment does not require force. It requires presence. You may think you lost time in those seasons, but what you lost was not time. What you lost was the illusion that you could control your way into peace, and what you gained was far greater. You gained the ability to listen. You gained the capacity to feel. You gained the clarity to recognize what is truly meant for you. When you look back, you will see that the times when your effort failed were the very times when your life was protecting you from paths you were forcing yourself into, protecting you from versions of yourself you no longer needed to become, protecting you from directions that would have drained you even further. You were not failing. You were being held. And now you stand in a different kind of space. A space where life no longer feels like something you must conquer, but something you can participate in. A space where your worth is not tied to productivity. A space where you can meet yourself without judgment. A space where you can rest without apology. From this space, effort becomes something new. It becomes an expression of alignment rather than a compensation for fear. You act when moved, not when pressured. You move when guided, not when panicked. You work from fullness, not from depletion. Life begins to feel lighter, more fluid, more honest. It becomes less about achieving and more about unfolding, less about getting somewhere and more about being here. The weight you carried for years lifts, not because you accomplished something extraordinary, but because you stopped arguing with the rhythm of your own becoming. When all your effort leads nowhere, it is because you are being led somewhere deeper, somewhere quieter, somewhere more real, somewhere your mind could not lead you because your mind is trained to repeat the past. Awareness is what moves you into the future. This is the gift hidden inside exhaustion. The return to what has always been guiding you. The return to the intelligence that does not strain. The return to the part of you that is already whole. You were never meant to live your life struggling upstream. You were meant to flow with the current of your own truth. You were meant to follow the quiet pull of the life that is aligned with your nature. You were meant to allow what is real to rise and allow what is false to fall away. You have spent so long trying to become someone worthy, not realizing that the worthiness was already there beneath the layers of effort. And when effort collapses, you are finally able to feel it. This is why life stops you. This is why effort fails. This is why you find yourself in seasons of stillness. Not because you are unworthy of movement, but because you are being prepared for a different kind of movement. A movement that does not exhaust you but expresses you. A movement that does not pull you away from yourself but brings you deeper into the heart of your own life. The greatest transformation of your life will not come from striving, it will come from listening. And now, after everything has collapsed, after all the doors have refused to open, after the exhaustion has stripped you bare, you are finally quiet enough to hear. And what you hear is this. You were never meant to force your way through life. You were meant to fall into alignment with it. And once you do, everything that once felt unreachable begins to unfold naturally. Not because you worked harder, but because you stopped resisting the truth of who you are. This is what happens when all your effort leads nowhere. It is the beginning of the life that is actually yours. Everyone, at some point, has felt the sting of being hurt. Someone you trusted betrayed you. Someone you loved abandoned you. Someone you depended on dismissed you as if you were nothing. And in those moments, the pain feels unbearable. It feels like your very being has been wounded, as though something precious inside you has been torn apart. We walk through life carrying these wounds like badges, telling ourselves, I will never let this happen again. And so we build walls. We armor ourselves with indifference. We wear masks of confidence, pretending we cannot be touched. But have you noticed? The more armor you put on, the heavier it becomes. The more you try to protect yourself, the more fragile you actually feel. Because deep down you know the wall is not real protection. It is only a prison. Think about a piece of glass. If you want to keep it safe, you might wrap it in cloth, hide it away in a box, and lock the box in a room. But then what happens? The glass never sees the light. It never fulfills its purpose. And the moment it touches the world again, the smallest blow will shatter it. This is what happens to us when we live in armor. We cut ourselves off from life, thinking it will spare us from pain. But instead, it makes us brittle. Have you noticed that the strongest things in nature are not hard, but soft? A tree that does not bend with the wind is uprooted. A rock crumbles, but water flows on. The soft, the yielding, the flexible, these endure. So ask yourself, why do you want to be hard? Why do you want to be untouchable? Hardness looks like strength, but it is actually weakness in disguise. Here is the paradox. You are hurt not because of what happens to you, but because of the meaning you give it. If someone insults you, the words themselves are just sounds. But if you believe those words, if they strike against the image you carry of yourself, then you feel pain. If someone rejects you, what hurts is not their absence, but the story you tell yourself that you are unworthy, unlovable, less than whole. The event itself is neutral. It is the interpretation that cuts. This is difficult to see because we are trained to live through images of ourselves. We think we are this fragile mask that must be defended at all costs. And when the mask is scratched, we cry out as though the face itself has been wounded. But who you really are cannot be scratched. When you look closely, you realize that the hurt is never in the insult, never in the betrayal, never in the rejection. The hurt is in the clutching, the holding on, the refusal to let the wave pass. Pain is a wave. It rises, it crashes, it disappears. But suffering is what happens when you hold the wave, when you try to stop it from dissolving. You say, this should not have happened. And in that clinging, the wound deepens. We imagine that if only life were different, if only people treated us better, if only the world were kinder, then we would never be hurt again. But that is not the way of things. The world is full of storms. People will betray you, people will reject you, people will misunderstand you. That is the nature of the play. The real question is not whether storms will come, but whether you will insist on being a house of glass in the middle of the hurricane, or whether you will discover that you are the air itself through which the storm moves, but which is never broken. This is why every attempt to make yourself untouchable through force, through hardness, through withdrawal, eventually fails, because the problem was never the storm. The problem was your identification with the house. You are not the fragile structure being battered by the wind. You are the space in which the wind blows. And if you see this, you realize something extraordinary. You cannot actually be hurt. Now, perhaps you think, that can't be true. I have felt pain, I have suffered, I have scars. Yes, of course, pain comes, like the rain, but rain cannot drown the sky. Storms cannot scar the space through which they pass. Your awareness, your true being, is untouched by events. Only the image of yourself, the little mask you cling to, feels wounded. Imagine a mirror. People can stand in front of it, they can smile, they can frown, they can curse at it, they can praise it, but the mirror itself is unaffected. It does not become more beautiful when someone smiles into it, nor does it become ugly when someone spits at it. The reflections come and go. The mirror remains. So it is with you. The insults, the betrayals, the losses, these are reflections, temporary, passing. But you, as awareness itself, are untouched. The tragedy is that we spend our lives trying to fix the reflections, not realizing we are the mirror. We polish the mask, defend it, hide it, parade it, and we suffer endlessly because masks can be damaged, images can be torn, but the awareness behind them cannot. You have never been wounded at your core. You have only believed in wounds. And when you begin to see this, something shifts. You realize that the hurt you carry is a story about what should or should not have happened, and stories can be released. This is why the old masters say, drop the burden, drop the mask, let go of the story. You think you are protecting yourself with armor, but the armor is what makes you heavy. You think you are preserving your dignity by holding on to the wound, but the wound is what keeps you from being free. Letting go does not mean pretending it didn't happen. It means seeing that it does not define you. It means realizing that what you are is deeper than any event, any insult, any betrayal. The ocean does not fear the storm. It allows it, embraces it, swallows it whole. And when the storm is gone, the ocean remains vast, deep, untouched. You are that ocean. So if you have been hurt, and surely you have, remember this: the pain is not a proof of your weakness, but an invitation to see where you are clinging. And if you dare to look deeper, you may find that beneath the wound, beneath the story, beneath the mask, there is something that has never been touched at all. That is who you are. And from that place, you will see that no one and nothing can truly hurt you. There comes a moment when you begin to see that what you thought was strength was actually fear. The armor you wore was not a sign of courage, but of trembling. The mask you carried was not self-expression, but self-protection. And when you glimpse this, you may feel naked, exposed, as though you have stripped away the only thing keeping you safe. But here is the secret. What you stripped away was not safety at all. It was the very weight that kept you drowning. We believe that by closing ourselves off, we will avoid hurt. But notice what happens when you close your heart. Yes, you may avoid rejection, but you also avoid intimacy. Yes, you may avoid betrayal, but you also avoid trust. Yes, you may avoid loss, but you also avoid love. And so, in trying to escape pain, you also escape joy. In avoiding hurt, you avoid life itself. Is this not a strange bargain? To trade the vastness of living for the narrow safety of a cage? But here is the paradox. When you open yourself fully, when you stop resisting the storms, you discover that nothing can truly touch you. Not because you have hardened, but because you have discovered the part of you that was never fragile to begin with. This is what the mystics call the ground of being, the Tao, the Atman, the self beyond the self. It is not something you achieve. It is not something you build. It is what you already are, and it is untouchable. Think of water. It can be struck, cut, divided, beaten, and yet it yields. It flows around obstacles. It takes the shape of any container, and when the container is gone, it returns to its own form. You cannot hurt water. You can only change its shape for a moment. Or think of the sky. Planes may cut through it. Clouds may thunder. Storms may rage, but the sky itself is never harmed. It does not carry scars. It does not remember insults. It is open, boundless, unmarked. This is what you are, not the passing events, not the insults, not the betrayals, not the fleeting stories. You are the awareness in which all of this arises, the open sky in which the storms of life play for a little while. But we forget this, and in forgetting, we suffer. We think, they hurt me, they betrayed me, they broke me. But who is this me that was broken? Is it not simply a story, an image? Your real being cannot be betrayed because it is not dependent on others. It cannot be broken because it has no parts. It cannot be abandoned because it is the very ground on which all relationships play. The one who is hurt is the mask, but the mask is not you. And here comes the great reversal. When you stop clinging to the mask, when you stop believing you are the fragile self-image, the very possibility of being hurt dissolves. This does not mean you become cold or indifferent. On the contrary, you become more alive, more open, more tender. Because now you are no longer afraid. You can love without fear of loss, because you see that loss cannot touch your essence. You can trust without fear of betrayal, because betrayal cannot wound your being. You can live without fear of death, because death cannot end what you truly are. Imagine this, a mirror. A child may stand in front of it, laughing, making silly faces. Later, an angry man may stand in front of it, shouting, spitting, cursing, but the mirror remains untouched. It reflects, it allows, but it is never stained. You are that mirror. The events of your life are reflections. They come, they go, they pass. But you, as awareness itself, remain unstained. To live from this realization is to become untouchable, not because nothing ever happens, but because nothing leaves a scar. The waves come, the waves go. The ocean remains. And this is the ultimate freedom. Because once you see that no one can truly hurt you, you stop living in fear. And when fear dissolves, love arises naturally. You no longer close yourself off. You no longer carry the heavy armor. You no longer resist the storms. Instead, you allow them, you dance with them, you even laugh at them. This is what it means to be free. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of resistance. Not the promise that storms will never come, but the discovery that storms cannot harm the sky. Now, let us return to where we began. You have been hurt. Of course you have. Every human being has. But what if those hurts were not what you thought they were? What if they were invitations? Invitations to see more deeply into yourself? The betrayal that shattered your heart, perhaps it was showing you that your heart cannot truly be shattered. The insult that burned in your mind, perhaps it was revealing that the one you thought you were is only a mask. The loss that left you in grief, perhaps it was pointing you to the part of you that cannot be lost. Seen this way, every hurt becomes a doorway. Every wound becomes a teacher. Every scar becomes a reminder, not of fragility, but of the indestructible being that you are. And so, the question is not, how do I protect myself from hurt? The question is, who is it that I think is being hurt? Look there. Look closely. You will find that the one you thought was so vulnerable, so fragile, so easily broken, is only a shadow, a story, a passing reflection. The real you, the awareness in which all of this arises, is untouchable. And if you truly see this, then the great burden lifts, the armor falls away, the mask dissolves, and you walk through life light, open, free. Yes, storms will come, people will betray, insult, misunderstand, reject. But these are only clouds passing through the vastness of your sky, and the sky remains. So the next time you feel hurt, remember, the hurt is a story, the pain is a wave. Let it come, let it go. And in the quiet after the storm, you will notice you were never truly touched. You were never truly broken. You were never truly harmed. You have always been the open sky, the vast ocean, the mirror that cannot be stained. And in this realization, you will find a freedom beyond anything you ever imagined, because no one and nothing can truly hurt you. There comes a time in every life when the idea of losing starts to feel familiar. You've done everything right, or at least tried to. You've followed the rules, set your intentions, given your best. And yet, the world doesn't seem to reward your persistence. You reach for things and they slip away. You open your heart and it gets bruised again. You try to grow, and still you find yourself circling the same lessons in different forms. It's in those moments that you begin to wonder, not in bitterness, but in quiet weariness, if any of it has meaning. What's strange, though, is that even in that weariness, something in you still shows up. You still wake up. You still breathe. You still try. It may not look like ambition anymore, but a quieter rhythm of being, not the roar of trying to win, but the whisper of simply continuing. That life is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be enjoyed. But when you've been losing for a long time, it's difficult to remember the dance. You start to think that life is testing you, that the repeated setbacks mean something personal, that the universe is keeping score. You look around and see others moving ahead while you seem to remain in place. That comparison cuts deeper than defeat itself. But what if you were never meant to win in the way you imagined? What if the whole idea of losing was an illusion born from the mind's addiction to measurement? The river doesn't lose when it bends. The wave doesn't fail when it falls back into the ocean. It's all the same movement. Every time you think you've lost, it's only because you were measuring life by something that was never stable, results, recognition, outcomes. But life isn't stable. It's alive. It breathes, it collapses, it blooms again. The flower doesn't think of the winter as a loss. It simply rests until it can rise again. When you're tired of losing but still show up, something beautiful begins to happen. The trying becomes quieter. The motives soften. You no longer push out of desperation, but from a kind of sincerity, not because you believe success will save you, but because it feels true to participate. You realize that effort itself can be a kind of devotion, even if it doesn't yield victory. And maybe that's what grace really is, showing up without knowing why, trusting that the act itself is enough. You see, the mind divides life into winners and losers, but life itself knows nothing of such divisions. It only moves, it expands, it contracts, it explores. What you call failure is just the other half of creation, the part that teaches humility, patience, surrender. Without it, there would be no wisdom, only vanity. When you've lost enough times, the ego begins to crack, and through those cracks, light starts to enter. You begin to see that the purpose of the loss was not to punish you, but to soften you, to make you less certain that you were ever in control. And in that softening, you start to discover a deeper kind of strength, not the will to dominate circumstances, but the capacity to remain open within them. Imagine standing in the rain. You can curse the weather, fight to stay dry, or you can simply let yourself get wet. At first it's uncomfortable, but soon something shifts, the fight leaves you, and what's left is sensation, coolness, texture, aliveness. You realize the rain isn't against you. It's just happening, and so are you. That's what happens when you stop treating loss as an enemy. You start to live again. You start to see that showing up, even soaked and tired, is its own kind of victory. You may not realize it, but every time you get back up, you're demonstrating something sacred, that consciousness is resilient. That awareness cannot truly be defeated. Even when everything falls apart, the part of you that watches it fall remains untouched. That witnessing presence, that's who you really are. The rest is just the story of a character learning how to love impermanence. When you begin to see from that stillness, losing takes on a different flavor. It's no longer humiliation, it's revelation. It shows you where you were attached, where you mistook temporary forms for truth. Each loss removes a mask. Each setback peels away another layer of illusion. And eventually, what's left is not a winner or a loser, but a being at peace with the game itself. You begin to understand that the act of showing up, even tired, even uncertain, is what life has been trying to teach you all along. To show up not as a conqueror, but as a participant. To move not for gain, but because movement is your nature. When you show up like that, even losing feels sacred, because you see that nothing was ever truly lost. It only changed shape. The effort transformed into learning, the failure into compassion, the exhaustion into stillness. If there is one secret the universe whispers to those who keep showing up, it's this: you are not being tested, you are being tempered. Life isn't interested in breaking you, it's teaching you to bend. And so, every time you think you can't take another loss, another setback, another disappointment, notice that somehow you still do. You're still breathing. You're still here. That is not weakness, that's grace. You've mistaken it for endurance, but it's something far more subtle. It's the quiet understanding that your worth was never tied to winning. That life's invitation was never to succeed, but to participate in its unfolding with open eyes and an undefended heart. When you understand that, losing stops feeling like the end of something. It becomes a pause, a reorientation, the silence between notes in the music of becoming. And in that silence, you might find something you've been missing, not success, but peace. There's a rhythm you start to notice after losing enough times. It's not loud. It's almost hidden beneath the noise of disappointment. At first, all you hear is the echo of your own frustration, that voice inside that says, I can't keep doing this. But if you listen long enough, the echo fades and you begin to hear something quieter, a pulse, a kind of still music beneath the struggle. That pulse is life continuing through you, no matter what. It's what keeps you standing up when every part of you wants to stop. It doesn't care about results. It doesn't even care about hope. It just moves. It's the same energy that brings the tide back after the retreat, that pushes the seed to crack open even in barren soil. You don't control it, you are it. When you begin to sense that, losing no longer feels final. You start to see that every so-called failure has been shaping you into something softer, wiser, more real. You realize that it's not your strength that kept you going, but life itself expressing through you. The truth is, you never chose to keep showing up. You were chosen by something deeper than will, the part of you that knows that even heartbreak is worth feeling if it means being alive. There's a certain beauty in that surrender. It's not dramatic. It doesn't shout or seek recognition. It's the quiet dignity of still showing up to life, even when no one is watching, when there's nothing to win, nothing to prove. You start to understand that perhaps showing up is all life ever asked for. The sun doesn't rise to win the sky. The waves don't move to impress the shore. They show up because that's their nature. And maybe that's your nature too, to move, to try, to feel, to fall, and to rise again. When you're tired of losing, the temptation is to stop caring, to withdraw your tenderness. But that's how the heart hardens. What life invites instead is a different kind of caring, not the effortful caring that drains you, but the open caring that flows without expectation. There is a form of strength that only comes when you stop defending against pain, the kind that no longer needs to be right or successful or admired. It's the strength that lives in vulnerability, the strength that says, even if I fall again, I will not close. That's what the universe recognizes, not your victories, but your willingness to stay open. Because openness, no matter how tired, is a kind of prayer. If you've been losing, it doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. It might mean you're finally doing it honestly. When pretense falls away, so does certainty, and what remains is the raw, unfiltered experience of being human. It's messy, it's painful, but it's real. And in that realness, you find something that winning could never give you: intimacy with existence itself. The people who seem to have everything often live on the surface of life. Those who have lost, who have been stripped bare, are the ones who touch its depth. They know how fragile joy is, how precious ordinary moments are. They've been to the bottom, and they know there's no treasure there except understanding. When you stop running from that understanding, a new kind of peace begins to bloom. It's not the peace of control or success, but the peace of being at home in your own imperfection. You start to smile at your mistakes. You begin to see the humor in your old seriousness. You realize that life was never mocking you, it was teaching you to laugh. You remember how children play. They lose constantly, and it never matters. They fall, they cry, they get up, and the game goes on. Somewhere along the line, you forgot that the game was meant to be played that way. The spiritual path, in truth, is a return to that innocence. It's not about transcending failure. It's about rediscovering the joy of participating. So when you wake up tomorrow and feel that familiar heaviness, that whisper that says, I can't keep doing this, remember that you don't need to do it in the same way. You can show up differently, softer, slower, without the armor. Show up not as a fighter, but as a witness. Show up not to conquer the day, but to meet it. There's no need to fix everything today or ever. The ocean doesn't fix the shore. It just arrives again and again until the rocks themselves soften. That's how life shapes you, through the persistence of presence. You'll find that once you stop demanding results, something inside you starts to rest. The exhaustion that once felt endless begins to lighten. You realize that you don't need to win anymore. You just need to be here. And strangely enough, that's when life starts moving in your favor, not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting it. When you stop trying to make everything happen, you create space for things to unfold. What once felt like loss begins to look like redirection. What once felt like stagnation begins to look like stillness. You discover that every time you showed up through your fatigue, you weren't proving your worth, you were remembering it. The part of you that still rises, still participates, still believes in beauty, even when everything hurts, that part is untouched by defeat. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need reward. It simply is. That's the real victory. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that what you called losing was actually the slow removal of everything false. What remained, what kept showing up, was the truest part of you. So yes, you may be tired of losing, but you have not been losing. You've been learning how to live without needing to win. And that, quietly, is how you begin to win without trying. There's something extraordinary that begins to happen when you finally stop fighting the story of your life. You still wake up each morning. You still face the same uncertainties, but the air around everything feels different. It's as though the tension in the invisible threads that held you to an idea of success has loosened. You still show up, but now there's a softness in the gesture. You begin to understand that showing up was never about proving your strength. It was about remembering your belonging. You see, most people misunderstand perseverance. They think it means clinging, forcing, pushing through until something changes. But true perseverance is quieter than that. It's not the will to keep moving for the sake of progress. It's the willingness to stay present even when nothing makes sense. It's staying in the room with life itself, even when every instinct says to run. When you've lost enough, something begins to purify in you. Your ambitions, once sharp and demanding, start to melt into something gentler. You no longer need to chase validation. You no longer need to prove that your path is correct. You begin to notice that even your failures have been faithful companions. Each one came to reveal another layer of illusion, another place where you were confusing effort with essence. There's a curious grace in those moments when you realize that you can't keep controlling outcomes. A kind of surrender arises, not because you've given up, but because you've seen through the futility of grasping. When you let go of control, you begin to see that life never needed it. The river knows where to turn, the wind knows where to blow, the tree knows when to let its leaves fall. You don't need to direct it. You only need to participate in its rhythm. That participation is what it means to show up. It doesn't require enthusiasm or certainty. It only asks for presence. There are days when your showing up will look like joy and creativity, and there are days when it will look like simply breathing. Both are equal in the eyes of life. The human mind loves to measure, to rank, to name one thing better than another. But in the vastness of being, all expressions have their place. The sunlight and the rain both belong. The laughter and the silence are both sacred. You begin to realize that there is no such thing as wasted effort, because every movement teaches you something about the nature of flow. When you stop seeing life as a contest, your heart begins to open again. It's as though an old wound starts to breathe. You realize that most of your exhaustion was not from doing, but from trying to make everything mean something. You were asking each moment to justify its existence, and in doing so you missed the beauty of simply being here. There's an old saying that enlightenment is not about becoming divine, but about becoming fully human. To feel deeply, to fall, to rise, to care, to let go, that's the real dance. When you participate in life without demanding victory, you start to sense a quiet joy emerging from the simplest acts. Making a meal, holding a hand, watching light move through leaves. There's no grandeur in these moments, and yet they carry a tenderness that nothing else can match. That tenderness is the beginning of peace. It comes when you no longer divide the world into what should be and what is. You see, all suffering begins with resistance to what is. You believe that things should have gone differently, that you should have been further along, that life should have been kinder. But the moment you stop arguing with reality, something miraculous happens. The pain doesn't disappear, but it softens. It becomes a companion instead of an enemy. And from that softness, wisdom begins to grow, not the kind that comes from knowledge or experience, but the wisdom that comes from allowing. It's the kind of knowing that whispers, "This too belongs." You start to see how even your losses were forms of guidance. Each door that closed was protecting you from walking where you weren't meant to go. Each disappointment was redirecting you towards something your mind couldn't yet imagine. Every person who left was teaching you the difference between attachment and love. Love, in its truest form, is not possession or certainty. It's participation without guarantee. To love is to show up even when you might lose, even when there's no promise of return. And that's what makes it sacred. You realize that life itself is a love affair, wild, unpredictable, sometimes devastating, but always alive. And to keep showing up for it, even when it breaks your heart, is to honor its mystery. There's a passage in the Tao Te Ching that says, "Do your work, then step back, the only path to serenity." For years, that sounded to me like resignation. But what it really means is that serenity doesn't come from withdrawal, it comes from trust. When you step back, you make room for life to breathe through you instead of around you. You stop trying to pull meaning from the world and start allowing meaning to reveal itself. That's why so many of your greatest moments come after surrender. You reach the edge of your own endurance, and in that collapse, something else takes over. The effort stops, and in its place arrives grace. You realize that the power you were seeking to cultivate was never yours to begin with. It was always the universe moving through you. You don't need to generate it. You only need to stop blocking it. When you act from that understanding, life becomes lighter. You still work, you still strive, but the strain is gone. You move as a musician plays, not because you have to, but because it feels natural. Even when the melody changes, you keep playing, because that's what the song demands. That is the grace of showing up. It's not about heroism, it's about harmony. To show up with grace is to no longer treat life as something to conquer, but as something to accompany. You stop demanding perfection from yourself or others. You stop trying to manipulate timing. You learn to bow to the seasons of becoming. There will be days when you fall apart again. That's part of it. You'll wake up feeling heavy, lost, uncertain. But now you'll know that even this is sacred. You'll see that you can be tired and still present, confused and still kind. That's what it means to live awake. Life never promised you clarity. It only promised you experience. And the willingness to experience it fully, without turning away, is what makes you whole. So, if you are tired of losing, but still find yourself showing up, remember this: you are already succeeding in the only way that matters. You are participating in the mystery with your heart open. You are letting life live through you. You may not see it, but every breath you take in that awareness ripples outward. Somewhere, someone else feels less alone because you kept showing up. Somewhere, the world softens because you chose to stay. And maybe that's what winning really is, not triumph over life, but union with it. You'll still fall, you'll still lose, you'll still forget. But you'll also remember, again and again, that it was never about being invincible. It was about being present. When the next moment of defeat comes, meet it gently. Don't analyze it. Don't rush to overcome it. Just breathe and say, "Ah, this too." Then step into the next moment, and the next, and the next. You'll find that showing up isn't something you do, it's what you are. Even when you're tired, even when you think you've lost, life continues through you. And that continuation, that quiet persistence, is the heartbeat of existence itself. You don't need to know where it's leading. You just need to walk with it. And somewhere along the way, you'll look around and realize you were never losing. You were only being shaped. You were only being loved in a way that demanded you let go of every illusion of control. You were never meant to win against life. You were meant to dance with it. And even now, as you stand there, tired but present, you are already dancing.